सबका तो मन मधुरस घोल रे, कर ले संगों का संग, तज मन मिथ्या कुसंग, शरण प्रभु की आजा रे। पल पल जीवन जाए रे, कर ले प्रभु का भजन, शरण प्रभु की आजा रे।
सहना भवतु, सहनौ भुनक्तु, सह वीर्यं करवावहै, तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति। Together we chant Bhagavad Gita, chapter 12, verses 1 to 10.
अथ द्वादशोऽध्यायः। अर्जुन उवाच एवं सततयुक्ताये भक्तास्त्वां पर्युपासते ये चाप्यक्षरमव्यक्तम् तेषां के ये मां नित्ययुक्ता उपासते श्रद्धया परयोपेताः ते मे युक्ततमा मताः ये त्वक्षरमनिर्देशम् अदृश्यम् अव्यक्तं पर्युपासते सर्वत्र गमचिन्त्यं च कूटस्थमचलं ध्रुवम् सन्नियम्येन्द्रियग्रामम् सर्वत्र समबुद्धयः ते प्राप्नुवन्ति मामेव सर्वभूतहिते रताः क्लेशोऽधिकतरस्तेषाम् अव्यक्तासक्तचेतसाम् अव्यक्ता हि गतिर्दुःखम् देहवद्भिरवाप्यते ये तु सर्वाणि कर्माणि मयि सन्न्यस्य मत्पराः अनन्येनैव योगेन मां ध्यायन्त उपासते तेषामहं समुद्धर्ता मृत्युसंसारसागरात् भवामि न चिरात् पार्थ मय्यावेशितचेतसाम् मय्येव मन आधत्स्व मयि बुद्धिं निवेशय निवसिष्यसि मय्येव अथ ऊर्ध्वं न संशयः अथ चित्तं समाधातुं न शक्नोषि मयि स्थिरम् अभ्यासयोगेन ततः मामिच्छाप्तुं धनञ्जय अभ्यासेऽप्यसमर्थोऽसि मत्कर्म परमो भव मदर्थमपि कर्माणि कुर्वन् सिद्धिमवाप्स्यसि
Before we start chapter 12, one of the most interesting chapters of the Bhagavad Gita, and of course a very pertinent question by Arjuna, which is something which troubles every sadhak at some point or the other. But before we start that, we have a general question from Sahadev. Number one, from the standpoint of Advaita, where are you there? I can't see you. I must at least see the question, Arna. Okay, very all right, good. So from the standpoint of Advaita Vedanta, we in our ignorance are now in a dream state while engaging with the world, even though it appears that we are in the waking state when engaging with the world. Yes, what you're saying is true. However, this way of saying it is not very helpful. It's probably not very helpful to you either, forget to anyone else. Firstly, from the standpoint of Advaita Vedanta, we never talk about it. Either something is true or something is false. Not from somebody's point of view this and from somebody's point of view that. It is either true or it is false. I know this is a very common philosophical stance that from this position it's like that and from that position it's like that. But here we will not take this. We will not talk like that because we are not interested in who has what position. We either want to know whether it is true or it is false. That's simple. Okay, so forget from the standpoint of Advaita Vedanta. Now, in our ignorance, we are in a dream state while engaging with the world, even though we think we're in a waking state. Now, this way makes it sound very esoteric. What you're saying is correct, but it sounds very esoteric. So let us make it sound normal. Normal in the sense that something we can relate to. So, what does it mean? It means simply this, that whatever we are perceiving in the world, whatever we are perceiving, we don't know what that thing is. I don't know what that thing is. So I am calling that thing a word. I'm calling that thing Brahman, God, reality, whatever. I don't know what it is. I'm just calling it X. Right? So what they're saying is that things are simply not what they're appearing to you. Now, to some extent, we understand this. We've studied what a mirage is. We've studied optical illusions. We have studied how in the distant stars that we are seeing today may or may not be existing because the light takes, let us say, 1,000 light years to get here. That means we are seeing the star as it was 1,000 years ago. So we understand these kind of things. Now we are actually seeing something else. In your house, you are now seeing maybe a laptop or a phone ahead of you, or the wall, or people, or whatever it is you're seeing. What are those things really? We have no comprehension of that. So one is an illusion itself, which we understand. And then comes the next part, which is that, what is it? And I'm looking at Joyce. So do I know what Joyce is? Okay, so I say, well, yeah, I know she is Joyce. I know she's in Cyprus. I know she is interested in Vedanta. But suppose I know all these things about Joyce. She looks after refugee children. I know all this. But what is this knowledge of Joyce compared to what Joyce actually is? Right? This is just like, whatever, touching the surface. So all we are saying is, we don't know what something really is. But we say that it is X, Y, and Z. This saying is what we are calling a dream. Dream means you are making some random statements. So the enlightened beings tell us that this world is God, X. We certainly don't see it that way. But this much we can comprehend, that we are not seeing it for what it is. Are you seeing Rosie for what she is? Are you seeing Shilpa for what she is? Are we seeing you for what you are? What are you? Now, so that's what the questioning starts. Right? So it becomes very glide. This world is an illusion, or this world is a dream. It doesn't really get across a physical, concrete reality, which is that I really don't know what is out there. Forget out there, I don't know what is in here. Okay, so that's all that statement means. That's why the actual term in Vedanta, I'm not making this up, that's why I'm telling you the actual term. The actual term in Vedanta for this is Maya. Ma means not, ya means that, not that. It is not that which you are thinking it to be. Okay, so that's point one. Clear? Then point two. When we die, the body is dead, but the subtle body is alive. This implies that Atman is still enlivening it. As Atman is not part of the Antakarna, how does the subtle body survive till rebirth? Think about the question. You're asking, how does the subtle body survive up to rebirth? How does the subtle body survive during birth? What is your answer to that question? Is it because of the food you eat? Your thoughts exist because of the food you eat. Your subtle body, can it be influenced by the food you eat? What is influenced by the food you eat?
Body.
The body, right? Your body survives because of the food, the oxygen, the rest, the exercise, all this is affecting the physical body. But while you're alive, what is keeping the subtle body alive? You know the answer to that question, because if you knew the answer to that question, you would know the answer of how it survives afterwards.
Because of consciousness, it is alive. When we, yeah.
And it is not separated from consciousness.
So it means that Atman still plays a role after death because it keeps the subtle body alive.
Is it playing a role during life?
I mean, Atman, we call it consciousness. So it is
Pure consciousness.
Yes.
Pure consciousness.
Pure consciousness. Yes.
So is it playing a role while we are alive?
Yes. I mean, not
What is
playing
that
a role.
role?
It enlivens. It enlivens.
So whatever it was doing during life, it's same thing as doing after life.
Okay.
Things are not so complicated. Vedanta is very simple. So it sounds like, oh my God, what is happening after death? Nothing will happen different from what is happening now. Same thing. That is why very common. That is, it works on the principle. Anybody knows what is the principle on which all this works? Anybody is aware? It works
Cause and effect. Cause and effect.
No, not cause and effect. Why cause and effect over here? The principle here is yatha pinda tatha brahmanda. That there is repetitions. There's always, pinda means as the microcosm, so the macrocosm. So that, in other words, it means there's repetitions. Like whatever you see, let's say a year, you see the seasons transition. It begins with the sun rather mild. As the year goes, it becomes winter, and then summer and spring and autumn and all that sort of stuff, and back into winter. Exactly what happens during the day. So it begins with it being very cold, it heats up, it becomes good weather, then it goes into autumnal, means the sun's effect reduces, and then finally goes back into winter, which means again your day goes cold again. So as the movement of the atom, there is a nucleus, and then the protons and the neutrons, protons and the
Electrons.
Electrons in the center. Protons, neutrons move around the electron, right?
No. Electrons move around the protons and neutrons.
Okay, whatever. The same movement that takes place in an atom is the same movement that takes place in the solar system. So yatha pinda tatha brahmanda. So how do we know about things that we don't know? By seeing the things that we do know. So that's the principle on which it all functions. Okay.
Thank you.
Now you see why Vedanta cannot be answered in simple WhatsApp messages, right?
Thank you.
Shilpa. Why does the subtle body keep its identity? Why not dissolve into the self like material matter? Shilpa, where are you? Can I see you?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, okay, sure. So Shilpa, why does the subtle body keep its identity? Why not dissolve into the self like material matter? Think about what you have written, Shilpa. Does the physical body or material matter, what is material matter, Shilpa? Like matter, does the physical body dissolve into the self at death?
No, what I meant is like physical matter, like a tree dies, it will become ash and then maybe become soil, etc. So it loses identity, is what I meant. So what I meant is like, like, why do we carry things from one life to another in one identity? I guess that's what I meant.
The tree also carries its identity if you consider its subtle body. You are talking only of the gross body. The gross
Yes,
body merges into its individual elements. The subtle body doesn't do that because it has an individuality. The nature is different. This body has no individuality. It is not a thing in itself. It exists because of the subtle body. Whether it's a tiger or whether it's a tree or it's a human being, these are the forms that it has taken to fulfill its desires. So the individuality doesn't lie in the body. Even a man of realization, a person of realization has a physical body, right? But he has no individuality. So individuality dissolving is self-realization. Physical body ending is death. They're two different things.
okay.
Madam, one question, ma'am. Not question, rather. Madam, just repeat
One
what.
second, let me just finish with Shilpa if she has
Sorry.
anything further to say.
So is it fair to say that that's an assumption we must make about the identity? Because in a sense, like, that's the basis of how we think about the entire Vedanta.
No, you never take an unknown as a basis for discussion. You always
Okay.
take a known as a basis for discussion. So you will have to establish first for yourself, is there an individuality? Do you believe
Yes.
that there is an individuality? Suppose you say yes or you say no. Suppose you say no, then the whole discussion ends. Okay, then Vedanta ends.
True.
Suppose you say that no, I do think that there is an individuality, then you have to ask yourself the question, what is causing that individuality? Is the individuality being caused by this physical body or not? Is a question you have to answer for yourself. If your answer is the question, it is caused by the physical body, then the whole concept of self-realization will go away, because the moment you die, individuality is gone. That is the Charvak theory. So if you want, that means people who believe there is nothing in life, there is no reality, there is no substance, there is no, what should I say, God. So all of this becomes their theory. So from that theory, then will come their ethics. What are their ethics? What is their morality? Because based on that theory will be what is okay to do and not okay to do. Like a Charvak will say, it's okay for me to steal from you because I have only this life. And, I have to make the most of my life as I have it now. So what happens to you is not my problem. Right? So whatever your philosophy is, it must percolate down to your last action. That's the purpose of philosophy.
Okay,
so
understood.
These are all questions you have to answer. And in the pursuit of all these questions and answers, you will decide about subtle body. And if you accept that subtle body exists, that means there is continuity after death. If you accept this as individuality, if you accept that much, then everything else will fall into place. So you don't take it as your assumption. This is a conclusion you've reached after some thinking.
Understood. Thank
you. Yes, Mr. Chandwani.
Madam, the question was just repetition. What takes place in an atom, proton and electron, happens in what is the complete after that, ma'am?
A solar system.
Thank you, ma'am.
Just like there's a sun and the planets go around it, similarly in the atom,
in the solar system,
nucleus and the neutron and everything goes around.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, so anybody has anything else before we start the text? So we have a wonderful opportunity today to study a question that everybody finds so difficult on the spiritual path, which is, should I love the God of my heart? Shall I love my Krishna and Rama, Allah and Christ? Shall I love that God in my heart? Or shall I consider it as the all-pervading, formless reality, Brahman? What should I do? What is correct for me on the spiritual path? This is a question that every single spiritual sadhak will have in their life, sometime or the other. So now we are getting to hear from the Lord himself. So I need not bother answering these questions. Now, as you know, the chapter is divided into various subtopics. Please follow it with the subtopic so that you understand the flow of thought. You understand why each verse is where it is, and therefore you get the punch of what is being said. No, don't just take it as individual things, individual statements. You understand the entire flow of thought. Now, if you remember what has happened so far, what happened in chapter 10, Krishna spoke about how he is everywhere, how he's the best, the greatest of everything, how he's the essential thing in everything. Right? That's how he spoke in the 10th chapter. And what did he do in the 11th chapter? In the 11th chapter, he seemed to have taken a complete U-turn and showed how everything is in him. You saw the form, the Ugra Rupa, the terrible form of the Lord. Everything residing in him. So now poor Arjuna is confused. He's saying, shall I do what you told me in chapter 10, or shall I do what you're telling me in chapter 11? What he's understood. He understands chapter 10 as telling him that he should worship the all-pervading reality. In chapter 11 as saying, worship me in this form. You saw the form of the Lord, worship this form. So he's a bit confused, just like all of us. We will also be confused about this. So the first part is his question. The first part of the chapter is his question and Krishna's response to that question. Then he goes on to explain the ways you find the truth. How do you find the truth? And last portion, a favorite amongst most people, is the 35 qualities of a bhakta, which we will now do in greater detail. So the three things. First, what should I worship? What is better? Which of these two is better? And then Krishna gives this amazing progressive ways of sadhana. And I hope that will help us understand the various stages of it. It's not like random, do this and do that. So there's a progression in this. And this is how you go about it step by step. And if you're going about it correctly, then you get the 35 qualities. So I hope largely, at least broadly, the chapter should be clear. First is the question, which is better. Then Krishna gives, and of course Krishna's answer. And then Krishna gives the stages of growth. Or the stages of growth means the stages of sadhana. What you do at what time in your growth as a human being. And finally, how do you know you have grown? 35 qualities. Okay, so follow it with the flow of thought and then it will all become clear how this works. All right, so let's start. First verse. Arjuna uvacha evam satata yuktaye bhaktastvam paryupasate ye chapyaksharamavyaktam tesham ke yoga vittamah. Arjuna uvacha evam satata yuktaye bhaktastvam paryupasate Ye chapyaksharamavyaktam tesham ke yoga vittama. Arjuna Uvacha. Ye bhaktaha. Those bhaktaha. What type of bhaktaha? Satata yuktaha. So ye satata yuktaha bhaktaha. Satata yuktaha, constantly joining, constantly uniting, means steadfast, consistent in the path. So ye bhaktaha, those bhaktas, those devotees. What type? Evam satata yuktaha, who are steadfast, who are always uniting, who are consistent. Paryupasati, they worship you. And those, aksharan avyaktam chapi. And those who the aksharam, shara, perishable, aksharam, imperishable, avyaktam, vyaktam, manifest, avyaktam, non-manifest. Right? Non-manifest means something. What is the meaning of non-manifest? Remember the definition of non-manifest. Something is not manifest when
Not conceived by body or intellect.
body doesn't conceive. Say properly.
It will not be conceived by subtle bodies.
Wait. It cannot force. Yeah, go ahead.
Cannot be perceived, cannot be felt, cannot be intellectually thought about.
Well, so cannot be perceived by the physical body, cannot be felt by the mind, and cannot be conceived by the intellect. Right? So what is manifest? Something that is perceived by the body, felt by the mind, or conceived by the intellect. These things are called manifest. If this cannot happen, it becomes unmanifest. So when you look at the form of the Lord, is it manifest or unmanifest?
Manifest.
Oh yeah, it wasn't that tough. Are you there or gone? Frozen?
Manifest. Manifest.
There or gone?
Can you hear?
Yeah, yeah.
Manifest.
Both.
Janki ji, you're muted.
Can you hear?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, now we can hear you.
Sorry, the internet, I don't know what is happening to it nowadays. Okay, so where were we? We were at manifest. So when you have a form, okay, when you go and worship in a temple or church or mosque, when you have a picture in front of you or an idol of any type, is this manifest or unmanifest?
Manifest.
Manifest. Why?
A form is there.
Because we can perceive it, see it.
Because you can see it with your eyes, you can touch it with your hands, right? So you can perceive it with the senses. So he is trying to make a division between what can be perceived and what cannot be perceived. Can you perceive? Is Brahman manifest? No. Why not?
Because
you cannot
He is
perceive it
infinite
with your
now.
you cannot feel it with your mind, you cannot conceive it with your intellect. Right? So he's making a difference, a division between these two things. So he's asking this question, Ye bhakta, means those bhaktas, what type? Satata yukta. They are steadfast, they are consistent. But paryupasate. Paryupasate means they upasate, they worship. They worship you. And those avyaktam aksharam, that unmanifest, imperishable. Those who worship that unmanifest, imperishable, and those who worship you meaning a form, those people, tesham ke, between them, tesham, among them, ke uttamaha, who are uttam, who are very good, who are superior amongst these two types of people. So in a very technical way, you can say, is formless worship better or is a worship for a form better? Technically put, that's what it means. Now, the whole concept of form and formless worship should first be clearly understood. Do we have that image, Omkar? You have it? Omkar, you're
Yes,
the
yes.
host today. You have the image. Now, in this world, there are two things. There is Brahman and there is the world as we know it, right? While we are in this world, the purpose of all spiritual sadhana is to reach beyond the world. Whatever that thing is beyond the world, whatever that truth is, whatever that reality, we call it Brahman. In Vedanta, we call it Brahman. In other places, they call it other names. So we are going to stick with the word Brahman to represent the truth. So there is Brahman. The purpose of spiritual sadhana, spiritual exercises, is to reach that ultimate truth, God, reality, whatever you choose to call it, we have to reach Brahman. which is beyond the world. Now, how are we going to reach that? We can't jump into Brahman. It's not a, what is this long distance jump we have to take. You can't jump there. What are you going to do? You will have to use the tools available to you in this world to reach there, because there's no other way to do it. What other way is there? So, what is available to you in this world? So they analyzed the world. They came up with 5 things that exist in this world. They said, the world is made up of these 5 things: earth, water, fire, air, and space. This is how they define the world. They said that the world is made up of these 5 things, which you can examine and know for yourself. One way of knowing it is what happens when we die. Think about it. Here is a dead body. What happens to a dead body? All the water oozes out. Water leaves the body. Firstly, air leaves the body. Stop breathing. Air has gone from the body. Water leaves the body. It starts drying out. Okay, fire leaves the body. Heat goes away. The body starts deconstructing. So the earth element in the body goes away. And when the earth element is completely gone, it has released the space it was holding. So you can see that this physical body is made up of the 5 elements, because when it disintegrates, this is what it divides back into. And so too everything else in this world. So this world is made up of these 5 elements. The earth element, which means any solid substance. The water element, all the liquids. The fire, the heat. The air, and the space. Right? So the whole world is made up of these 5 things. Now, when you come to spirituality, and of course, there's a little gradation in these. In our diagram, we saw that the furthest away is considered to be earth. It's the grossest. And then comes water, then more subtle than water is air, and more subtle than air is fire, and more subtle than fire is air, and more subtle than air is space. Now, how do you think that they made this division, that earth is the grossest and space is the subtlest? They made this division based on the fact of how many senses can perceive it. So, earth can be perceived by all the 5 senses. Water by 4, fire by 3. In fact, that is why most religions have used fire in some way or the other, because it is the first seen element. You can't see space, you can't see air, but you can see fire. Right? Then there's air, which you can only 2 senses can perceive. And then there is space, which is considered to be contactable by only 1 sense organ, which is the ear. You can hear. So this is how they divided out these elements. I mean, that's how they made it grossest to subtlest. So now you want to use these elements to reach God. What will you do when you're very young in the journey to spirituality? Then you will begin with earth. Not you will as in you have to, but that is what will seem most appealing. So what will seem most appealing? It will be an idol, it will be a picture, it will be a physical object of some sort. Even if it's Mecca or Medina, the thing, a physical object of some sort. Then so all religions have got some physical objects as symbols. Okay, like a cross, the Christians wear a cross around their neck, or there'll be some physical objects. Then the second type of symbols we could use are water-based symbols. So every religion similarly has water-based symbols. So we have Ganga, it's the rivers in India are considered divinities. And then the Tirtham, in church you have wine, you have the holy water. So water symbols that are used by the various religions. Then you have the next one is fire. Fire, of course, everybody has some form or the other. The fire temples of the Zoroastrians, the havans of the Hindus, the candles of the Christians. Everybody uses the fire element in some way or the other. And then what comes? Then air. Air means all the fragrances associated with religiosity. Agarbattis and things like that. And then finally comes space. So space can be contacted, remember, only by the ear. So what is that? The sounds. You have the church bells, you have the ghanta of the temple, you have particular music. All these are signs, chants, mantras. All of these are sound symbols. And the highest sound symbol is supposed to be Om. So like this, we have all these tools with us, all these symbols with us to realize the self. Now the question will always be, what do you call form worship? Some people draw the line of form worship at earth. Okay, they say this is all rubbish to have any idol of the Lord. It's a terrible thing. It's a horrible thing. They are iconoclasts. They want to break down every physical thing. But even they cannot completely do that, because they still build a building and they still have something physical there. Even though they claim that no, you cannot have an image of the Lord, they will still have something physical. Okay, so different people will draw that line somewhere. Some people will draw it at earth. Some people will draw it at air. Some people will only accept space. So each one of us will draw that line somewhere. Are you with me so far? I don't know, because you are not saying anything, so I have no idea whether you're asleep
Yes.
or you've understood. Okay, got it. Okay. So far, so good, right? So now you have to think for yourself, what do you call form worship? And then you must hold that definition throughout, right? So for the purpose of this class, suppose we were to draw it and say that worshipping the earth is form worship. You understand what worship the earth means? Worshipping the earth means what?
All five senses can perceive.
Yes, all physical objects. Right? Now, some people draw it halfway now. Like, for instance, they'll say form is the Murti of Shiva and formless is the Shivalinga. Are you aware, Joyce, what is a Shivalinga? Yeah, oh, very good. So some people will say only if it is in human form, then it's a form. Anything else doesn't come as form. So different people are going to draw this line in different places. Okay, as far as we are concerned, we will take it for our purposes for this class as a form, a physical symbol. Okay, we don't have to take it like that. We can take it as anything. We can take even up to Om as form. Okay, please remember that. When you say, I'm going to worship Brahman, the formless reality, can you call this also a form? Can you call it a form?
Yes, we can, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, we can. Why can we call this also a form?
Because all forms are part of it.
Because you are conceiving it with your intellect, right? You are saying, I believe in the formless reality. That means you made some conception with your intellect. So technically, that should come under form too. It is manifest. You have a thought about it. Right? Am I just confusing the issue? Or is it clear? Well, is anybody new? Anybody new will have even greater problem than the old people, I suppose. Or all old people.
Can I?
Hmm?
In the Om, when we use it, the sound element still exists.
Correct.
So,
So therefore,
it will be in both then, because it's like the space, formless, but still it has that sound.
yes, yes. So that's what I'm saying. So anything in the world that you use is definitely either perceived by the senses or felt by the mind or conceived by the intellect. So technically speaking, you cannot have formless worship. How is that even possible? Because even if you say formless, you use the word formless, you have a conceived thought. So you're given a form. You're given a manifestation. So if you take it to the extreme, there will be no such thing as formless worship. Even if you're worshipping just the Om, just the sound, just the name Brahman, with the concept of formless reality, it is still a symbol of that ultimate truth. Everything is a symbol because everything is a manifest thing. Manifest means it can be perceived by the senses, or felt by the mind, or thought by the intellect. The reality is beyond all of this. But now, if you're going to refer to it, you're going to use some name, right? You're going to say X, you're going to say Brahman, you're going to say something. So be very careful in your understanding. Most people think form means what is a physical object. Some people say it's not only a physical object, it's in a human form. And that alone is form. Everything else is formless. Right? But when you're using the word manifest, even the thought is manifest. So that way, everything becomes form and formless becomes impossible. So we will not take that technical thing. We are going to draw the line at physical. Are you all with me so far? Preeti. So unmanifest Brahman is manifested in the world through various forms. Preeti, what has this got to do with anything?
No, I'm just trying to understand this unmanifest and manifest aspect. So because it's all
by definition. Begin by definition. What does manifest mean?
Form.
What does manifest mean, Preeti? Did you join late? What does manifest mean?
Something that can be seen.
Can be perceived by body, mind, intellect.
Can be perceived by the body, felt by the mind, conceived by the intellect. That is the definition. If you all miss the definition, then everything else after that will become a mess, right? So go start with the definition. Please make sure your definitions are right, so that we are all using the same word to mean the same thing. And Vedanta is king of definition. Everything is defined. Nothing is left to anybody's imagination here. So we cannot compare. So Preeti, what is manifest?
Yes, felt, perceived, and seen.
What is perceived by the senses, felt by the mind, or conceived by the intellect. Right. So anything that falls within this category, either it's perceived or felt or thought, will become a symbol of that ultimate reality. Is this much clear?
Yes.
Okay. Now, do you still have a question?
So, what I'm trying to understand is that when we talk about Brahman, we say unmanifested. But then when we talk about all pervasiveness, we use manifested.
How can you use manifested for all pervasive?
Because that would be seen, felt. I mean, that would be part of the form, no?
No. What is all pervading means that which is everywhere. If it is everywhere, how can it have a form? Of something has a form if it ends somewhere, no? This there's a form because it ends here. But suppose I increase this endlessly to infinity, where's the form? By definition, form means it doesn't exist beyond its boundary. That's what form means, correct?
Right.
So if you say all pervasive, automatically becomes formless. Because a form has to have anybody can answer. Form
Boundary.
So if there's no boundary, there's no form. You think Vedanta is simple? It is simple only after a point. The initial thing is a speed bump. Very carefully you have to understand these things because it's so easy to keep talking, Anybody keep saying all sorts of things. But there's no specific knowledge anywhere. Just talk, this is also okay, that is also okay, that is also okay, chaos. That is why I've been strongly recommending to everybody, please come and attend the residential programs so that we can catch hold of you and make sure that you get it right. It's impossible otherwise. It's very, very important. Do the residential program. It's very important. You get the discipline, you get the ideas, you get the focus, which is the essence of Vedanta. It's being able to focus on it. So, coming back, those ever devotees who worship you, worship you, versus those who worship the imperishable, the unmanifest, which of these are better versed in both? Now, I hope it is clear what we are calling the form. At the moment, for the purpose of this, we are going to take only the physical as the form. But if you understand this carefully, then what all is included in form?
Everything.
Everything.
Yeah, don't say everything, say it properly.
Up to thought.
Say it fully and properly.
Everything
Whatever
that can be
perceived by the senses, felt by the mind, and conceived by the intellect.
No, you could also say the other way, form with boundaries. Would that be correct?
Yeah.
No, Janki ji.
Yeah, it's all. Yeah, 1 second, I'll just tell you. It all depends on how you define the word form. Like when you're praying to the fire, do you call it form? Some people say that's formless worship because there's no real form, there's no permanent form there.
But we can perceive it.
But you can perceive it, correct? You can see it.
So automatically
as far as our definition is concerned,
it's formed.
we
Then.
will include it.
It will be formed then.
Yeah. So So all this, we have to understand the spirit of all of this, because the words everybody's going to use differently. So if you say form, then you'll have to go back to saying what is a form. So yes, if you are talking about the truly formless, like beyond the world, then yeah. But it doesn't help because you still have to do all the definitions that we just did. You can't escape them. Yeah, Milind.
No, I want to say whatever this Pancha Mahabhuta represents, it is form. It is form. Hello.
Yeah, go ahead.
Generally, I said this Pancha Mahabhuta represents form. I think it's not going.
Yeah, it represents the form. So what's your point? I'm not able to understand
this was my point. Okay, only this was I want to say.
Yeah, so the Pancha Mahabhutas, the Mahabhutas, the 5 elements are we take symbols of the Lord from these 5. We have to, because we have nothing else available. So we have to take the symbol. How are you going to talk about the Lord, or how are you going to refer to the Lord, or what are you going to think about the Lord? You're going to take something, right? You're going to take a sound, or you're going to take an image, or you're going to take fire, or you're going to take a fragrance, or you're going to take a water symbol, whatever you take, but you're going to take something. The purpose of all of these things is to get beyond all of that into Brahman. Arjuna is saying, those who worship you, Krishna, and those who worship in some sense of formless, which of these two are superior? Now, you have 1 week to think out the answer for yourself. Which is superior according to you? Okay. So that's it for today. Hari Om.